year 2025, global markets were shaking. Trade wars, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical tension had economies predicting a worldwide slowdown. But here in Malaysia, the story on the ground was different. While the word slowdown, we speed up. The data released by the Department of Statistics (DSOM) tells the story of not a crisis, but of resilience. Today, we take you beyond the headlines. We are dissecting the official figures, from the gross domestic product to the price of goods in the market right behind me. Now, let's go to our field reporter to see how the year started.
Now, let's focus on the latest report says about Malaysia's GDP and overall growth. Across 6 articles, the message is quite consistent. Despite global challenges, Malaysia's growth momentum is stronger than expected. In the third quarter of 2025, Malaysia's GDP is expanded by 5.2%, which is noticeable pickup from the 4.4% growth recorded in the previous quarter. This faster expansion came mainly from improved network exports and strong rebounds in sectors like mining and electrical and electronics. Tourism also played a major role by bringing in more foreign earnings and lifting the current account surplus. If we look at the year whole so far, GDP growth in the first 9 months has already reached 4.7%, which put Malaysia firm within Bank Negara official forecast range. Because of this strong momentum, various institutions are maintaining or even upgrading their growth projection, such as Bank Negara, the IMF and Standard Chartered all expected Malaysia to grow between 4.0 and 5.5% in the 2025. Within most forecasts centered around the mid-4% range. One of the key reasons growth remains steady in our domestic demand, private consumption is still growing. Supported by strong labour market and rising wages, investment is also holding up driven by infrastructure projects and the realization of previous approved private investment. These domestic factors help cushion Malaysia against weaker global demand. At the same time, external risks are still present. Global tariff changes, especially revised 19% US Trump on Malaysian imports, could soften export performance in the second half of the year, while sectors like electronic and electrical and mining and tourism continue to provide enough support to keep the growth on track even if export moderates slightly.
Throughout January to September 2025, Malaysia's inflation remains stable and manageable. In first quarter, inflation moves from 1.7% in January to 1.5% in February and 1.4% in March. Key drivers include restaurant and accommodation, personal care, and housing. States such as Johor, Selangor, and Malacca recorded inflation above the national average while most states stay below. Moving to second quarter, inflation softened further, recording 1.4% in April, 1.2% in May, and declining to 1.1% in June, which is the lowest point in 51 months. Declining global oil prices and weaker production input costs helped stabilize consumer prices. Food inflation slowed, especially under the food at home subgroup, while services such as education and personal care remain steady. In third quarter, inflation slightly increased but remained low overall. It was 1.2% in July, 1.3% in August, and 1.5% in September. Financial services surged significantly during this period, while food inflation remained modest. Again, most states recorded inflation below national average except Johor and Selangor. Across the 9-month period, inflation trends show Malaysia successfully managing price pressures with stable consumer purchasing power and moderated living costs.
Next, we will talk about people and job in Malaysia. Previous years, labor force participation rate LFP are increasing 0.2 percentage points to 70.7%, up from 70.5% in Q1 2024. Based on the graph, Total employment grew by 2.9% to reach 16.8 million persons, with over 146,000 new job opportunities generated during the quarter. For salaries and wages in the services sector rose by 4.2%, primarily in the wholesale and retail trade, food and beverages and accommodation for 0.4%, as well as private health, private education, arts, entertainment and recreation and personal services and other activities segments for 0.3%. By category, actively unemployed persons, referring to those available for work and actively seeking jobs, made up 79.8% of the total unemployed persons in July 2025. Within this category, 64.3% had been unemployed for less than 3 months, while 5.1% were classified as long-term unemployed, been without work for over a year. Unemployment rate among youths aged 15 to 24 years remained at 10.2% in July 2025, with the number of unemployed youths in this group was 298.9 thousand June 2025, 10.2%. 297.5 thousand persons.
Today, I will focus on one major macroeconomic issue in Malaysia for 2025, which is the country's high public debt and the need for strong fiscal policy response. As mid of 2025, Malaysia's total public sector debt stands at approximately 85.8% of GDP, while federal government debt alone is around 64.7% of GDP. This creates a significant financial burden because debt servicing consumes about 16.3% of the government's total revenue. From a macroeconomic standpoint, this issue is deeply connected to the fiscal policy. When a large share of the government revenue is used to repay debt, the government has limited fiscal space for development spending, social protection, or counter-cyclical policies during the economic downturns. This aligns with the fiscal theory, which states that high debt can restrict a country's ability to support growth and respond to shock. In Malaysia's case, the challenge is not only the size of the debt, but also the need for effective long-term fiscal governance. To address this, the government is implementing the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2023, which is a major policy framework aimed at strengthening transparency, improving debt management, and gradually reducing fiscal risk. According to the International Monetary Fund, Malaysia still has policy space to continue structural reforms, but this space will narrow if the debt keeps rising without credible consolidation measure. In summary, Malaysia's high public debt is not merely a financial statistic. It is a policy-driven macroeconomic concern that requires disciplined fiscal planning, transparent reporting, and sustained political commitment to ensure long-term economic resilience.
As we have seen, the numbers for 2025 are impressive. A GDP growth averaging above 4.5%, inflation that has been tamed, and an employment rate that has hit a historic low of 3.0%. But economics is not just about statistics on the page, it's about the rakyat. The Malaysian economy in figure 2035 prove that the transition to the Madani economic framework is working. We are moving from a recovery phase into a new era of high income stability. The challenges are not over, but the framework is set. Thank you for watching.